Hello and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Power of Manifestation event. My name is Andrea Miller and I am the host of this amazing session entitled Quit Wanting, Stop Chasing, Start Attracting. Amen to that. And I am delighted to introduce my guest, one of my favorite people, somebody who I've learned so much from, Matt Cooke. Matt is a renowned manifestation coach, speaker, and author. His debut book, Beyond Wanting, is being published this fall on 11/11, if you can believe it, by Penguin Random House. So go ahead and get those pre-orders in now. Known for his grounded and modern approach to spirituality, Matt inspires a global audience of nearly 1 million people by blending science, wisdom, and practical insight into the art of true manifestation. At the heart of Matt's mission is a profound desire to connect deeply with spiritual seekers and like-minded souls. He believes in the power of authentic relationships and the magic that happens when people come together to support one another in manifesting their best lives. He lives in Cornwall in the UK with his wife, Corisande, and their son, Humphrey. Welcome, Matt Cooke. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you, Andrea. Great to be here. Excited.
Yeah, you are one of my favorite people to follow on social media, and I'll just shout out his social media is amazing. So I encourage you all to follow him. But I learned so much from you, Matt, because your approach is so practical. And that's what I'm excited to bring everybody today. You're really practical, actionable insights so that they can take, our amazing audience can take full advantage of your, genuine passion and expertise. We're going to start with part one, the problem with wanting and chasing. You have cracked me open with this idea of stop wanting, right? And I'm like, but wait, isn't it okay to want because that it gives me direction and I'm setting an intention. I want this outcome. So let's start with just explain to us, if you will, what the problem is with wanting and what should we be doing differently?
So very simply, whenever you want anything in life, you haven't got it. Wanting equals lack. Wanting is the I am statement of haven't got. So what most people unconsciously do is they stay grounded in the wanting without moving beyond wanting, just like my book. So I'm not here to say you can't have what you want. In fact, I'm here to help everyone get what they want. But you've got to embody the essence of your future self who's already living the life that you want. Let's say someone wants love. I want love, and they're wanting a relationship outside of them. Quite reasonable. What most people unconsciously do in that scenario is they're waiting for something outside of them to fill that void of love. So actually the vibration that they're resonating in is the opposite of love. And we'll go into this through this work, that you attract into your life who you're being in the present moment. It's very, very simple. You know, if I was to ground it down to the simplest way to understand this work, you go and walk in front of a mirror and you smile into the mirror, you will see a smile. But if you walk into the mirror and you hope to see a smile, but you're frowning, the mirror reflects the frown. The mirror will only change when you change first. And we have to understand that the universe is the mirror. We attract into our life what we are.
Okay, everybody, just take a minute. If you have your Power of Manifestation handbook, this is an amazing thing to jot down. And by the way, if you don't have it, you can grab it real quick at powerofmanifestation.com. It is going to be really helpful for this session and other sessions. So I do encourage you. But this idea, I love the metaphor here, Matt, of if you look in the mirror and you smile, that's the universe smiling back at you. And if you look in the mirror hoping to see a smile, you're not getting the smile. Like that, I just love that metaphor. I've never heard that before. That is powerful.
Yeah, the mirror will never change until you do. And I think if everyone stops and realizes most of us are waiting for the mirror to change first, never happens.
that idea of that the universe is just reflecting who you are. And to me, it comes back to, I mean, it really feels very grounded in emotions. Is that, I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the heart itself is, a thought is more like a wish in the wind, whereas the heart, the emotion is more of the connection.
That's the signal, right?
Yeah.
That is the signal.
Because the way you've got to think about it, and we'll go into this, is that, the body is the subconscious mind, and the subconscious, it doesn't operate in linear time. So what do I mean? You and I right now are using our critical, analytical, conscious mind, and we're here in linear time, and we know what time it is. And so anyone watching this, they're using their critical mind and they know what time it is. They're in linear time in the conscious mind, but the subconscious is in the landscape of now at all times. It doesn't understand the clock. It just understands what's going on. So the subconscious is entangled with this field. So whatever you feel and whatever you embody subconsciously is really the connection that's going back and forth with the universe. That's why a thought is just a wish in the wind. It's not really, it needs momentum. It needs something stronger. And that's why the emotions subconsciously are so powerful.
So let's say I wanted to manifest, I'm building my social media presence. Let's say I wanted to manifest as many followers as you have, Matt, engaged. And I mean, oh my God, to the extent that's something that's important to me too. I don't have it now, but I want it. So as a practical example, I want nearly a million plus. I even want more than you. and everybody, whether it's social media, whether it's love, whether it's wealth, whatever it is, I want you to be thinking about that thing that you want as Matt guides me through how to reframe this wanting. So it's not coming from lack, but it's energetically positive. Can you help me?
Yeah. So you want to, so your goal is 1 million followers, let's just say.
Exactly. Let's just say.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Why?
Because I'm super passionate about the work that I do, and I've learned a ton from people like you, and I want, that's that word, to reach that many more people so that they too can learn. I mean, my life is transformed, and I want to share that.
Sure. Would you be happy with 100,000?
I would be happy with 100,000, but I would like to reach more people because I do think by reaching more people, I can have a greater impact.
So what happens when you get to 1 million? Will you just stop?
No, when I get to 1 million, I keep going. And I feel on fire because I've reached a goal that is important to me. And ideally, there's a feedback loop that's happening along the way that I'm like you, I'm hearing, oh my gosh, that's so helpful. Oh, thank you very much. Right. So that mirror is coming back to me to say, hey, this is working. This feels great. Let me keep going.
The man who loves walking will walk further than the man who loves the destination.
Oh, snap. Say it again, Matt. Say it again.
The man who loves walking will walk further than the man who loves the destination.
Oh, I love that, guys. Everybody take that in, right? Because it's about the thing. Right? It's about the thing. It's the creation. It's the act of it. Yes, I love that.
Because let's be honest, you'll get to 1 million, but you will then move the goalposts again. The journey never ends. So there's a great declassified document by the CIA called the Gateway Process, and it was declassified in 2003. And they asked the Monroe Institute to gather all the information back in the 80s. So everyone should check it out. Everyone should scroll right down and read what it said about patterning. Now, I knew in my heart for years that there was a problem that most people were missing. And that is that the bigger the goal, the bigger the void, the further the space, the easier it is to be in lack. So what I've always done myself is I've always reverse engineered down my manifestation goals. So I always firstly start with 12 months out as a maximum. Only because 12 months to me, and I've seen what's happened in 12 months of my life, a publishing deal with Penguin, my wife getting pregnant and our son being born in that same year, buying our dream house, I could go on. So for me, going back to the Gateway Process, I knew that everyone was talking about your goal should scare you. Your goal should be huge. No. To me, if the goal's too big, it creates a vibrational misalignment. It creates lack. So I would say to you, if you're at 400 followers now, you should be focusing on 10K. Okay, as an example, why? Because 10K is still a million. Because you're still on track, you're still aligned. In the gateway process, everyone should read the part on patterning and then the last sentence. It says, the further away the desired objective, the more it can dislocate one's existing reality with great consequence. Something around those lines. The further out the objective desired, the greater the impact on that person's sort of existing reality. It will dislocate their existing reality if it's too far out.
So it needs to be, it's almost like there's like a Goldilocks space. It sounds like lack of like, hey, I could never have that big thing, so I'm going to keep it small. That's not the right vibration. But if it's so big and you can't believe it, that's not the right vibration. So it's like a Goldilocks, like, hey, this is doable. It's a stretch, but it's doable. And I freaking believe it.
Absolutely. I think actually, if you were just focusing on 1 million followers from where you are, you're going to feel like there's a lot of like work to do to get there. And actually, if you try and understand that, we'll tie this back in, but I like to see the quantum field as like a field of infinite probability. And it's like a probability distributor. And it has to sort of like fit or render into one's reality. So yeah, Andrea, there is an absolute probability that you could hit 1 million followers pretty quickly. But the reality is it might be more of a sequential journey. So I would say to you, there's a lot of people out there who have a huge goal and they absolutely believe it in a time frame. Like they just know. And I would say, great. But to me, like if you're not like 100%, say to yourself, why can't I just reverse engineer that back? Because reverse engineering back and manifesting the smaller goal is still manifesting the larger goal. So for example, the context of love, and then we'll come back, right? Most clients I work with or speak to who are looking for love, they're visualizing being married, let's say with children, and they're single and they're in lack and they're like fearful about their age and this biological clock. And I say, why not let's focus on manifesting a great date and a great conversation, because that is still manifesting the children.
Well, you got to go through that to get to the end goal. And I love that. It just, to me, that is like infinite abundance. It's like, okay, once we get to that place of our intended outcome, there is still so much more opportunity. So I love this so much. And again, just for everybody listening, because I feel like this comes up a lot. Should I go for the biggest goal ever? Should I keep it safe? I love what Matt's saying, and I hope you take this to heart, that find that Goldilocks space that seems exciting and maybe a little scary, but doable. And then once you get it, you're going to keep going. Just like I'm going to get to my 10,000 followers, and then I'm going to get to 100,000, and then it's going to be 500,000, and then I'm going to get 1 million. And it's all part of that journey. And whether you're applying these principles to love, because of course, we want you to love going on the dates. Okay, so let me just do a quick summary since we've covered a lot of amazing ground. So really thinking about this kind of in 3 sections. So part 1, we talked about the problem with wanting and chasing. So wanting, it's not about the semantics. It's that sense of being in lack and having that the observer who's coming from lack, having that perception of lack, and that is kind of where the problem begins, if you will. And then you talked about you attract who you are, not what you say or what you ask for. And then thirdly, you talk about basically self-observation is your starting point. So you start to understand that that observer is not who you are. It is that default mode network. It is that set of messages that just continue to run on a loop. And I loved how you talk about the mirror. If I want to smile and I smile at the mirror, that's what the universe is going to reflect back to me. Versus if I say I want to smile and I frown at the mirror, the universe is going to give a frown back to me.
That escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Matt, so what we started with was wanting equals being in that lack frequency that you described. Let's get into, you say you attract who you are, not what you say or what you ask for. I feel like that maybe is a good second point to drill into.
Yeah. So who we are is essentially made up of various components, but we could say it's how we think about ourselves day to day, how that tends to make us act and move and behave in the world. And then that consequence of those two things tends to make us feel a certain way. And then those feelings tend to drive similar thoughts. So we could say, scientifically, everything's energy. So that component there of those several things is moving energy in a certain way. And that energy, the movement of that energy is known as vibration. Everything is vibration. So I like to see our own personal vibration as our I am statement, if that makes sense. So I am vibrating based on how I think, feel, and act in the world. So we have to try and imagine that that's broadcasting our signal. And that signal is what's being picked up in this quantum field. I won't go too deep now because I want to back this up. And then that signal essentially is, if people can try and imagine, the universe is always going to it's always going to say yes, no matter what. So if you say, I want more money, and it'll say yes, and you'll continue manifesting more wanting because the signal you're giving out is the wanting, because you're waiting for something. The moment you start really practicing the gratitude for the abundance already in your life, and and we really make a deliberate act to do that and to embody gratitude as well. Well, the signal then we're putting out then is one of abundance. So we're going to attract more abundance back. But here's the thing, Andrea, let's break this down. Like I said, wanting is the problem, but not the word. It's more of the vibration. Yeah? More
right.
Of the vibration.
Thank you. Yes.
We all want stuff. Like I want stuff. You want stuff.
Yeah.
But we just don't want to stay in that lack. But first, here's what we've got to do. Put the vision to one side for a moment, and let's come back to basics, and let's just understand something really simple. Who am I being? We have to start with that. We have to start with what's known as self-observation. So anyone listening to this right now, let's do this exercise together. If all of us just close our eyes for a moment and we just say to ourselves inside our head, not out loud, we just say the word hello 5 times. And then once we've done that, we now do it again, but this time we shout it inside our head as loud as we can. And then we open our eyes. The question would always be, what happened there for you, Andrea? Did you hear the word hello? Did you see the word hello? What happened for you when you did that?
I saw it and I felt it, especially the second time. I mean, when you told me to shout it, it was like resonant.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So who saw it? Who saw the word hello or felt it?
Oh God, trick question. I'm not ready for this, Professor.
I
guess it's that observer, right? Or,
yeah.
I mean, I want to say me, but I feel like that's the obvious answer, and it's never the obvious answer. Exactly. So who is it?
Yeah, who is it? It's labeled in different ways. You would say it's either the awareness, the witness, the watcher, the consciousness, or the observer. One of those. I like to call it the observer. The observer is the one that observes. So what we all experience there is, we all experience in different ways. I hear it. So I'm not very visual. So in meditation, I struggle to see. So some people are seers, others tend to hear. So I hear it. So who heard it? Well, I, the observer, heard it. So if I'm not practicing the separation, where am I? I being the observer, I get entangled with the thoughts. Okay, now what if those thoughts are ones of negativity, like I'm not good enough, I always fail, people like me don't succeed, I'm always broke, I'll never be able to get out of this, I'm too old now, I've passed myself by it. The I is the thought. Now there's a term called metacognition, which means, meta meaning on top of, we are always on top of our thoughts. And if we practice that separation, we can become aware that we're not those thoughts, we're the watcher, the observer. Now, what happens in our brain, Andrea, is something called the default mode network. The default mode network is a network in the brain that has been wired through repetition. Now, it actually is very quiet when we're in a focused task, when we're having a conversation. If you're watching this, it actually quietens down. Imagine getting the remote and quietening down the noise. The moment we stop doing something like this, watching a podcast or a show or an active, focused activity, the slideshow comes back on. And the slideshow is the default mode network. It's the screensaver, if you like. So it tends to play when we're in idle thought, when we're walking the dog or when we're gardening or having a shower. And that's the thought that tells us that we're not good enough. So the default mode network is essentially pathways in the brain. So the first place we start with manifestation is becoming aware of the current network, the current default in the brain.
It sounds like almost like that's the pre-programming that we probably inherited from generations before us, and a culmination of our childhood experiences, the boss yelling at us or whatever, like all those things that are what we've inherited and what we've experienced going into, if you will, that narrative or that story. Is that which that becomes, you describe it as the loop. Is that, did I get that right?
Yeah. The easiest way to look at it, in my opinion, I always go to a forest trail. Trails in a forest. If you ever go like walking in a forest, there's always these very well-trodden pathways in a forest, trails. And if you're trying to imagine that forest like your brain, and you have these very well-trodden pathways. Now, I want everyone to imagine going down one of those paths in the forest, one of those trails. You go down it. It's very well defined. It's pretty easy to walk on. But at any moment, you can decide to detour and take a right or a left and go through the bush, if you like, the overgrowth, the trees, the stinging nettles, the thorns. And if you do that and you divert off the path, you can get to the same place or a new destination, but it's not going to be easy, is it, initially? Like, you'll walk down and you're like, oh my God, like I shouldn't have done this. I should turn back. Like, it's difficult. You're getting snagged by branches. But as you do that and you step, what happens is you're flattening, aren't you? Part of the unflattened forest. So now let's imagine you've done that, Andrea. Now I'm 10 minutes behind you in that same forest, and I go and I'm like, I think that's a new path. I think it is. So it looks like someone's gone down there. So I go down it. Would you agree that it's going to be a little bit easier for me? A little bit. Yeah. Now let's imagine someone else is behind me and they go down it. Through repetition, that now becomes the new default pathway in the forest.
It's almost like you need to go into that to get out of that trodden path of the default mode network, which is not serving you. You've got to be willing to create that new trail. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. So just to bring this in practical sense, this is happening in your brain. Now, the brain, its objective is to save energy. So let's imagine, just like Andrea taking that diversion in the forest, your current default is, I'm not good enough, right? The new pathway in the brain is, I am good enough. Just really simple. When people do that initially, they go, this is so hard and I can't do it. I've tried with my positive affirmations. It's just so hard. Can I just give yourself a pat on the back and just say you're doing really well, because your brain is designed to save energy and it will do all it can to put you back on the I'm not good enough path, because it's well defined. But just like in that forest, if we all keep going, the old pathway will eventually grow over. Now, so it's hard. Look, I'm going to be honest. It's hard to start. It's hard because the brain will always default to the well-trodden pathway. Do you know what's interesting? Even to this day, when I want to change up a positive affirmation with a new positive affirmation, it's so hard to do that because my brain will do all it can to keep me on the old positive one, just because it's the well-trodden path. So what am I getting at here? That's how the brain is designed. All these pathways, which has been built through repetition. Now, if we don't practice the separation like we did in that exercise, the I and the observer is the one that chooses to go down the new path. If we don't understand that we're separate from it, by default, we slide down those pathways. Now, imagine that path, we go on that path, it goes through the brainstem, down into the body, and creates a corresponding feeling, an emotion. So I'm not good enough is going to make you feel frustrated, right? So that feeling of frustration,
but that's the normal, right? And that's what we're already primed for. So it's like we have to reprime ourselves, basically.
Yeah. So we can, and neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reshape itself at any age. They used to think the brain was primarily fixed by 18, 21. It can now be, rewired, which is great for this reason. So that's where we have to start with manifestation. We have to start with understanding, through compassion and separation.
Yeah, compassion for ourselves, right? Because it's easy to be compassionate for others, but so often we're our own worst critics. We're so tough on ourselves.
Let's just take a step back. Let's realize that this is actually going to speed up what I'm looking to manifest. So most people don't want to do this because they want to spend all their time on the nice, shiny things like vision boards and meditation. But most people continue to manifest more of what they don't want because they don't do this hard part first. So whenever I'm working with a client, our first couple of sessions are this, and I'll say to my client, I'll go away for the first week and really be the scientist and practice these observational check-ins through the day where you become aware of what thoughts you're thinking, and the more awareness we can shine on it, the more we can become a master of reframing, right? So that's where we start. Now let me tell you why. I never planned to be a manifestation coach, teacher, author. That was never the plan. And if anyone watches my podcast with Andrew, you'll know my origin story of how I connected with my mom and knew that there was more to life than what meets the eye. And the truth is we're seeing virtually 0% of reality. We're seeing about 0.0035% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Over 99.9% of light is invisible to our eye. So reality is this sort of, this 99.9%. So if we break down anything physical to its purest form, anything in three-dimensional reality, we'll arrive at the atomic level, which is really the foundational place of everything physical. This microphone, our bodies, everything, we get to this atomic level. And then if we go below atoms, we get to this very strange place called the subatomic world with particles such as electrons and protons. And these are really the foundations of physical reality. But what's truly, truly fascinating for me, and I went off and studied quantum mechanics to really try and understand manifestation and how it works, is that this world that creates all things physical actually exists in what's known as pure possibility. Pure potentiality. It exists as what's called a wave and a particle at the same time. So the particle represents all things physical, and the wave means all things energy, the 99.9% we can't see. So hang on. So anything in our world is actually a particle and a wave at the same time. And the only way it becomes a particle is through observation. So our conscious observation in quantum mechanics collapses the wave. That's what it's called. It's called collapse of the wave function. It collapses the wave into a definite localized position called the particle. And that to me was like the aha moment, the real wow.
Because, so just to rewind for a moment. So what you're saying, I think what I hear you saying is that literally infinite possibilities exist. Those are all the waves, right? As far as, like you say, pure potential, pure probability. And then to the extent that, just using this example right now, you and I have collapsed the wave. I could be talking to anybody, but I'm talking to you. And you could be talking to anybody, but you're talking to me. The reality is and this is getting a little I want to make sure I get it right. So correct me if I get it wrong, that what we're experiencing is, and what we're observing is, that is our so-called reality. Is that accurate? And that's what's actually collapsing. We could be talking about literally infinite things, but this is what we're talking about. So the reality of what you're saying is, it becomes a particle, the wave was collapsed, and this is our experience of reality. This is what we're observing.
Sure. But let's really ground this into manifestation. Okay. It's we did the observer, the I, the consciousness. Where is that most of the time for most people, right? Rooted in lack, rooted in scarcity, right. Rooted in unworthiness.
I'm not enough.
So why do people continue attracting the same patterns in their life? Because the observer is lack. So therefore, the wave collapses and they continue to attract the same men into their life, the same problems into their life, because they haven't practiced the separation of the awareness, the observer, reframed the thoughts. So all of my clients go, Matt, you're not going to believe it, but this happened out of nowhere. Well, of course I believe it, because firstly, you became aware of your current lack in default mode network. You started rehearsing a future as if it was already done. So the observer's now seeing a timeline where what you seek is already done, and that collapses the wave. And therefore, you then start to see synchronicities appearing in your life. And that is how it works. Whatever you're observing is whatever you attract, because in quantum mechanics, observation collapses from energy into matter. But most people's observation is in lack. So that's why I always say every single human being on earth is in a state of manifestation. My goal is to help people become conscious manifestors, not unconscious manifestors.
Yeah, no, that's so beautifully described. That effort has to go in. So yes, the effort has to be there, but we want to just really emphasize, at least I do, and I think you would agree, that the idea of stressing about how is secondary at this stage.
It's a good point. Yeah. There's two types of action: forced action and aligned inspired action.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you and I and anyone else, we're taking aligned inspired action towards that vision. We're not forcing it, not making things happen. Just on this, before we roll into the last part, is that letting go or surrender is an aspect that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to manifestation. Okay. And as I'm telling this story, I'm actually looking out from my home office in the garden, and I'm looking at some grass seed that I've recently planted, and it's now I'm starting to see the grass coming through. And it's a great analogy because there's a co-creation between the intelligence and yourself. So let's imagine for a moment we're doing this work, we're rehearsing. So we're in meditation, we're visualizing our desire as if it's already done. That is like akin to me clearing the earth here, getting rid of the stones, removing the limiting beliefs, and planting the grass seeds. So that's planting the intention into the universe through meditation. Now, it's really key that once we do that, we get up from that meditation, or I get up from planting the seeds and I surrender, I let go. You have to open up and allow that intelligence to come through. Now, if you're a gardener and you're planting grass seed, then you'd say it's Mother Nature. When it's manifestation, you'd say it's the universe or divine intelligence or the quantum field. Now, that grass seed isn't going to turn to grass after one day. Likewise, my meditation might not manifest into a book deal after one day. So what you do is you visualize, or you plant the grass seed, and you get up through that day, you try and stay in your heart, you stay excited. And if any signs come your way, you take inspired action. But if at the end of the day, nothing happens and the grass seed still hasn't, bloomed, well, I'm going to show up the next day and I'm going to water the grass seed, or I'm going to show up again in meditation and I'm going to visualize that same outcome as if it's already done. And that's like watering the seeds. And at some point in divine time, when you're least expecting it, you'll start to see the results. Like I'll start to see the grass coming through, or I'll start to see signs coming through. And that is surrender. People think surrendering is waving that white flag and like, oh, I just do it once and then I walk away and never do it again. No, we've got to co-create. We've got to allow that intelligence to do its thing as well. People get in the way, you see. When we don't let go, or we block the energy, so to speak, and then that's when we're likely to force action.
Well, and I want to come back to the word certainty, because that's something I've really learned from you too, is it's almost like this, to me, this really wonderful, beautiful tension between being certain. For me, I am certain I'm going to get those 10,000 followers. And by the way, I'm going to get my million. I know it, I feel it. And I know the why and the motivation behind it. And yet, I say this healthy tension because it's not happening today and it's not happening tomorrow, and it may take more than a year. And so for me, this idea of saying, I am certain of the outcome, but I'm going to surrender to the divine timing, to how it's going to unfold, to me, that's genuinely fire. It's like, let me love the walking, Matt. Let me love the freaking walking. As a hiker, it's a great metaphor. And that to me is like this beautiful sweet spot of, I know this outcome. I am certain of the outcome. I trust the outcome. Those are some of the things that I've learned from you, but I am willing to surrender to, in this phase of the journey, to how it unfolds. Guys, everybody listening and watching, this juxtaposition between being certain of the outcome, feeling it, and just continuing to come back to that feeling of excitement and certainty and surrendering to exactly how it's going to unfold.
That we're manifesting from this infinite field of potentiality. But we do exist as individuated units of consciousness, which is part of a larger consciousness system. And here in physical matter reality, which is what we live in, there is a rule set. And that rule set has been carefully designed by this larger system. And that rule set has things such as gravity. It has things such as time. So if a boulder's rolling down a hill, we can't use our minds to roll it back up because there's a thing called gravity. But there's also a thing called gestation, which is that things take time, i.e. a baby takes 9 months. So we live in a rule set, and therefore, it's not a genie jumping out of a bottle and, wishes are sort of, things do take time. And we have to appreciate that. Now, some things some manifestations happen very, very quickly. I often find my better manifestations are the ones that have taken a little bit longer because it's who you become in the process. Like, look, let's be honest. You could have one video that goes viral and you could, in theory, get 1 million followers.
That's what I'm talking about, Matt.
There is Sailing with Phoenix. People might know him. He's sailing from somewhere in the US to Hawaii, and he quit his corporate job, and he's a sensation on Instagram at the moment. And I've seen him gain 1 million followers in a week. Great. And I love following him. But I think who Andrea becomes in the process and the journey of to 1 million, the universe really isn't making you wait. It's preparing you. So when you get what you want, you can hold it. That's where I've really come to.
Oh my gosh, I was in tears this morning. I just went on this great trip. I came home. It's so beautiful here in Colorado. And tears of so much gratitude and joy because it took me a long time to feel worthy, Matt. I mean, I'm just going to keep it real. And I was in this moment of complete gratitude and saying, I can finally hold it. My starting point won't be this moment of saying, hey, Matt, I'm going to speak this into the universe. I want my 1 million followers. My starting point started when I really started taking myself seriously, when I said, I am worthy and I care deeply about this outcome for all the right reasons, right? That to me is a different time horizon, and one that I just really want to put out there to you guys, to all of us. It is about that becoming, because I know now that I am worthy and I deserve it. And I didn't believe it before. I did the work and now I know. Okay, so part 2, what you talk about is observation changes reality. You're wiring your identity from the inside out. So you talked about that quantum observation, how at the quantum level, particles exist in probabilities. And when we observe them, it collapses the wave. I think I've gotten that in a way that I've never gotten it before. So thank you for that. So that's part 1, that quantum observation. Then you talked about the default mode network and that the brain and neuroplasticity, and using the wonderful metaphor of walking out in the Colorado woods, that by creating those new paths, we're able to leverage the neuroplasticity, tell a different story to ourselves, about worthiness, instead of being that observer that just is continually coming from a place of lack. That's critical.
I like to see my identity, like I said, as who I'm being. So who am I being is how am I thinking, how am I feeling, how am I acting? Yeah? So that there to me is my personality. Joe Dispenza says this beautifully: your personality creates your personal reality. And that's because of what I've spoken about there with, collapse of the wave function. So whoever you're being from a personality point of view, an identity point of view, is what's reflecting out, or if in a sense, that is what's observing this quantum state. And therefore that's what's reflecting back or collapsing.
Okay, so that's your energetic identity. There's this great Jim Carrey clip. I'd love to tee this up real quick, because he did this wonderful commencement address a handful of years ago where he talks about identity in such a cool way. Let's watch.
I'm saying I'm the proof that you can ask the universe for it. Please. And if it doesn't happen for you right away, it's only because the universe is so busy fulfilling my order. My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love. I am at the top of the mountain, and I was, and the only one I hadn't freed was myself. And that's when my search for identity deepened. I wondered who I'd be without my fame. Who would I be if I said things that people didn't want to hear? Or if I defied their expectations of me? What if I showed up to the party without my Mardi Gras mask and refused to flash my breasts for a handful of beads? But you guys are so ahead of the game. You already know who you are. And that peace that we're after lies somewhere beyond personality, beyond the perception of others, beyond invention and disguise, even beyond effort itself. You can join the game, fight the wars, play with form all you want. But to find real peace, you have to let the armor go. Your need for acceptance can make you invisible in this world. Don't let anything stand in the way of the light that shines through this form. Risk being seen.
So we just watched two great clips from Jim Carrey. You know, he is known for being one of the great manifestors out there and having this immense amount of success. You know, and he's urging us all to ask the universe, and it's almost like what you were saying, and I'd love to get your perspective, Matt. He's asking the universe and believing that he's worthy. Do you feel like that captures what you're trying to get people to do better?
Yeah, so he said a couple of things, importantly. Firstly, he said his father wanted to be a comedian but didn't believe it. So I think the belief there is key, right? He said we have to move beyond our personality. Our personality is primarily made up of how we think, feel, and act. So that's the default mode network. That's why he's saying move beyond it. Everyone's personality has been built differently based on their upbringing. And he said ask, but we lack the context there of how he asks, because there's actually a section that I've included in my book of Jim Carrey, where he manifested $10 million for his role in Dumb and Dumber, but he didn't know it was going to be for Dumb and Dumber. I think it was 5 years before that he wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered, and he would go up to Mulholland Drive and he would rehearse and visualize himself being an actor and being handed $10 million. And he was like, I think it was 1993 or 4, he landed the role for Dumber and Dumber, which paid him exactly $10 million. So, he wasn't waiting and wanting, he was actively embodying and rehearsing and visualizing. But then, of course, taking the inspired action and probably picking up jobs here, there, and everywhere. But he was fully believing it. He was rehearsing it in his mind. So if we keep doing that, if we go back to neuroplasticity, what starts to happen inside your brain, it will start to look like your future's already happened. That's what's really powerful. So by the time he was landed that role, inside his brain, his default mode network, his neural pathways in his brain would be showing to a brain surgeon who peeled back his skull, oh, he's been given $10 million for acting services rendered. Like as a child, as a young child, my mum's no longer here, but the one thing she always used to say to me as a child, Matt, one day you'll grow up and you'll be a nurse. And to me then it was like a nurse was something that was the furthest away from what I wanted. I wanted to be a footballer, a soccer player.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, as a child, I did. As a child.
Yeah.
When my mom kept saying, you're going to grow up and be a nurse, it just didn't fit in my ideology, And I said, well, I remember saying to her, what do you mean? Why do you think I'll be a nurse? And she said, because you're really good at helping people.
And that's amazing, man. That really is amazing.
Yeah, I realized in that moment that is sort of like what my way is. Like carers is like humor and like making people laugh and making people feel light and relaxed. My real driver here is to help people, to be a nurse, So the vehicle that helps me do that is manifestation. The vehicle for Jim Carrey is being an actor, and being a comedian. So I think have to be driven by the deeper essence behind the desire as well in the first place, you know.
And what's so fun with somebody like him who's so successful, oh my God, that the earnestness and the wisdom is just, it's wonderful. Okay, so let's do this. Since we're coming to the end of our amazing session, and it's been amazing, thank you so much. You've got a really cool live practice. You call it Be, Do, Have. Can you walk us through that, please?
Of course. So I've just said to you in this session that we attract into our life not what we want, but who we're being. Yeah? So when we start to get clear on what we want, it's a good place to start secondary. We all need to get clear of what we're in lack of, what we desire. So we need to get clear on what we want to have. But most people start with that. What do I want? But they miss something really fundamental. So this is what I'd like everyone to either journal along with. Maybe, Andrew, you think about this as well yourself. Really think about this, okay? So here's exactly what I do myself. Ideally, you do this and you get yourself into a form of a meditative state yourself. And I would recommend after doing this exercise again, and what I like to do myself is actually sort of have my phone on, recording myself at the same time and speak out loud. So let's imagine, everyone, that we are able to go and meet a future version of ourselves. So maybe, Andrew, if you want to close your eyes and you do this. And I want you to imagine that there are, in this quantum field, an infinite amount of future versions of you that exist, Andrea. And to anyone else watching as well. There is an infinite version of you that exists in any time frame. But let's be specific. Let's imagine a year from now. Okay, so when we ask that question, who do I want to be on the 9th of June, 2026? I want you to start imagining now who that is from a personality point of view. How does that version of you think? Who do you want to be? So think of their being, okay? How do they hold themselves? How do they react in the world? How do they show up in the world? Who are they? How do they look? How do they behave? How do they dress? Just imagine that. Imagine that version of you. Who do you want to be? So as you're visualizing that version of yourself now, I want you to imagine that the version of you in 2025 is drifting towards now this version of you in a year from now. So as you think of who it is that you desire to be, you now see them. So try and imagine where they are. Maybe it's at a different home. Maybe it's somewhere else. Just try and imagine where they are. Okay? And this future version of you, this specific one that you've chosen, isn't yet aware that you're watching them. But I want you to imagine that you're getting closer and closer and closer, almost like a fly on the wall. And just look at them. This is the version of you. You could be anyone, but this is who you desire to be. What is it about this version of you that you like? What's the energy that you pick up when you're around them? What is it that you like about them? Just really be there and really feel that. Maybe you're proud of them. And I want you to imagine now to yourself what you'd say if they could hear you, what you'd say to them. And as you do that, I want you to imagine now that your future version of you has noticed you. So you're now there with this future version of you. And they've been expecting you. So I want you to now imagine walking up to them. Be there now, right in front of them. Locked eyes. Now put your arms out and hug them. Give your future self a huge hug. Feel their embrace. Feel that squeeze. That's true love. And now say to them what you wanted to say. But they want you to know how proud they are of you, because they know that you created them. The work that you're doing now in 2025 created them. So just be there with them, really feeling that embrace, this future version of yourself. Really feel that. Really feel it. And just start to remember this feeling, because this feeling represents this future. You can remind and teach your body emotionally what your future feels like. And now I want you to imagine finding somewhere to sit down with this future version of yourself. So just find a place now, sit down with them, and you say this: I could be any future version of me, and you are who I desire to be. What did you do to be you? Tell me what you did. And just allow that space and see what comes. If nothing comes, maybe it will come after. Maybe they'll tell you what action they took. What did you do? What habits did you do? What action did you take? And we listen. My version of myself says, Matt, I took risks. I leaned in. I ignored the haters. I got rid of the energy thieves. I was focused, disciplined. I went every single day. I didn't skip meditation. What did you do? Ask them now. What did you do? Spend a few seconds there now. What did you do to be you? And we just sit with that. And now we say, okay, let me grab their hand and say, as a result of doing all of that and now being this version of me, show me what you get to have. And they can transport you anywhere. They can show you anything. Imagine now being with them. What you get to have. Maybe you're with your family in a new home. Maybe you're seeing your business, your Instagram. Whatever it is, it can be the material things too. This doesn't matter. Let's bring some ego in if we want. That's fine. It's part of it. What you get to have. And this is where now you imagine that you're being taken around maybe. And you're seeing it all. And now just to finish, we just go back and we just give them one more huge hug. We just say, with a hand on our heart, we just say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And your future self is here, always. Whenever you want to reconnect, whenever you want to go back and ask more questions, maybe you want more clarity on what they did. They're always there in that landscape, waiting for you in the present moment. And as we now drift back to this present moment, here in your physical setting, become more aware of the chair you're sitting on, in your physical body, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Oh my God, Matt. I did not expect that to be so emotional for me. Oh, thank you. And I hope it was for everybody following along, and please go back and do this. I mean, as you were speaking, what the word that kept radiating through me was trust. And I've had trust issues in my life, and this idea of trusting myself, and you use the word risk too, that trusting, surrendering, taking the risk, having the courage to be that future version of me and to have what I know is possible for me was very powerful. Thank you.
So a few things on that. Firstly, I want everyone to know scientifically that they exist. They exist. Okay. And never second guess any instant thought that comes into your mind when you do it. Take it. But here's the thing. What you should end up with when you do this yourself, you should end up with notes from be, from do, from have. And you look at it and you say, okay, well, if I start trusting, if I listen to what my future did, trust, take risks, follow the journey, stay consistent. You start doing that now, right? As we're recording this in 2025, automatically as you do that, you'll start being that version who's lighter and more energetic. And as a version, as you start then doing, you immediately start being. And guess what? You attract into your life who you're being. So as you start being, you start to get what they have. And that is it, literally. And that is what we do in manifestation. We visualize that future version of ourselves who's already living that life, but then tangibly here, we start doing what they said. And as we start doing what they said, we automatically start being them. And by being them, that's the mirror. That's the observation. It's the collapse of the wave. We start to have the evidence, which is the wanting. And that is how we move beyond wanting.
Amen. And just really to underscore that being, since that's where we started, and we have to come to a close. When I think about my own life and just the work that I've done, following your advice and others, you and I are both, along with many others, big proponents of Joe Dispenza's work and so forth. So that doing that, that deep meditation every day, and really embodying that worthiness as somebody who didn't feel worthy for the longest time. And I've been fortunate. I live, in a nice home and so forth. But I appreciate what I have now like I've never before. And I emphasize that because I know a lot of people want the thing. And even using the example that we were talking about in my own life, the 1 million followers, it's less about the 1 million. Yes, again, little ego. And I appreciate you're giving everybody permission to have a little bit of the ego, right? That's good. But you're asking about the why and the feeling of it. And being the person that loves to walk and to have that experience, to me, that's where it all completely aligns. So it's not out there, but it's in here.
Well, where
it's
did
manifestation
you get
from the inside out.
You got emotional when you went to see the being, the future version. It wasn't the million. The million's always it's where's the energetic exchange of the million going for why, and it's always the purpose and the trust. And so that's what I do. I do this exercise. This is clearly, everyone here listening to this is getting an early sort of preview of my book. This is the best way, in my opinion, to get clear on your vision. It's to break down the aspects of the doing and the being. And sort of the have is automatic, if I'm honest. The have is a byproduct.
That's it. That is it. 100%. Like that that becomes the outcome. Yeah. I always say, even in my team professionally, I want to think about what the input is, because the output then will take care of itself.
Yeah, exactly. And that is it.
The have is just a natural consequence of the being and doing.
So that's how we then bring up the title of this show, Quit Wanting. Most people start with the have, but we now understand that's just automatic from the doing and the being.
Oh my goodness, Matt, you are a genius. I love this so much. I learned so much, and I'm already so familiar with your work. So this is really cool for me personally. Thank you. Everybody watching, I hope you got at least as much out of this amazing session as I did. And of course, just another quick shout out to the Power of Manifestation handbook. If you have it, I hope you're using it. If you don't, you can get it literally instantly by going to powerofmanifestation.com. Definitely, if you got the handbook, if you have a notebook, definitely be writing stuff down, because you're going to forget it. And just like Matt said, when it comes to those quick bursts, the intuition, you want to write it down. And particularly, there were so many great takeaways that I want to make sure you're capturing in this session, and of course, in all the other amazing sessions of the Power of Manifestation event. All right, quick summary, and then I'm going to let you go, Matt. So we went through 3 main sections. Part 1, the problem with wanting and chasing. And just to really recap, that wanting, it's not about the word wanting. It's just that coming from a place of lack. Wanting isn't the problem. It's the feeling of, I don't have it and I have concerns about getting it. Matt, really, you underscored that you attract who you are, not what you say or what you ask for. And then you also really emphasize that self-observation as a starting point. So that's kind of the 3 main points in part 1. Going into part 2, you spoke beautifully about how observation changes reality and explained how we can rewire our identities from the inside out. You talked about that quantum observation. There are infinite possibilities for each of us, and that our default mode network is that kind of the storyteller, if you will, and we're able to change. Remember, everybody, that great metaphor of walk with me in Colorado, walk on a trail. Let's make a new trail together, creating new channels in our default mode network. So if you're coming from I don't believe it, I am not worthy, I'm not lovable, etc., that you're gonna face some of the brush, you may some thickets and so forth. But the way to change that default mode network, that story, going from lack to worthiness, is going to require that change in really that change in thinking and feeling. And then Matt also talked so beautifully about that energetic identity. And that's ultimately where the action is, that feeling of gratitude. And he says, just the thoughts alone, not very magnetic. It's the feelings, that gratitude and excitement. That's really where the action is. And then in part 3, Matt, you did such a beautiful job of taking us through your be, do, have guided meditation. It was emotional for me. I hope it was emotional for everybody doing it when you guys are hugging your future selves and knowing how much you can be, do, and have for yourself. So just to summarize, it starts with, who do you want to be when you're thinking about that future self? Maybe even just as little as a year out from now. Who do you want to be? What did your future self do to be the person and live the life you desire? And finally, what does your future self now have by being that version of yourself and doing the things that enable you to live the life you desire? And again, this is all, these highlights are also in the Power of Manifestation Handbook. I know it's a lot, but I really hope all of you are just honestly soaking all of this in. Okay, Matt Cooke, I could talk to you for days. I know we will talk again. Thank you so much. Guys, if you want to get even more from Matt, there is so much more. A couple quick things. You can find him at Matt Cooke Coach, Matt Cooke Coach on Instagram and TikTok. He has the most amazing online course. It's called Evolve. And Matt, remind me your website again, where people can find Evolve.
mattcooke.me.
Matt's amazing book, Beyond Wanting, is available for pre-order now. And depending on when you're watching this, it may already be out. I encourage you to grab a copy. There is so much more than just what we covered today from the one and only Matt Cooke. You are amazing. Thank you. Mwah. I can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Welcome. Thank you, everyone. It's been great.